Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Mom Mode. This week we have Spenser on the podcast, and I am so excited that you're here to talk about your experience with sleep consulting and just your motherhood journey, Spenser. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy you're here. For those who don't know you, can you just give us a little introduction of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Spencer. I am a mom of two boys. They are 4.5 and very newly 3 years old. They're 19 months apart, which is a lot, but amazing. I live in New York and I am a certified pediatric sleep consultant, which means I help to support families in their journey to better sleep and navigating the crazy process of sleep training and what that looks like from babyhood to toddlerhood to young children. And so I run my own sleep consulting practice called My Sleep Friend.
I love that. And yeah, I was actually, when Spencer reached out to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions personally because
Everyone does.
my daughter sleeps so good. But I think I
That's
mentioned it to
amazing.
you in an email that like she will only sleep in her crib. So that was challenging as a first time mom and when they're in their first year of motherhood, because obviously they are on a strict nap schedule most of
Yeah.
the time. And so whenever I was out of the house, she was in that car seat, she would just scream her head off until we got home. So sleep
Yeah.
is very challenging, and obviously when they don't sleep, that's even more challenging.
It's so true. I was just thinking as you were talking, like, if so, probably some moms who are hearing us talk about this right now are like, I wish that was my problem. Like, my kids will sleep anywhere but the crib. But it's hard. It can be hard no matter how it pans out, right? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes you want to be on the go and you feel like you're a slave to your house and the nap schedule. So it could be challenging that way too.
Yeah, that's so true. I didn't even think about that. I'm like definitely a homebody, but that moment made me feel like I'm like, I just want to get out. I just want to get
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So, with your two boys, they're 19 months apart.
Yes.
How did this all come about? So, with your experience with your two sons, what was that like for you as a mom?
Yeah. So when I first became a mom, I didn't know that sleep training was something that people actually did like in modern times. I just thought that was like very antiquated. I didn't know anything. I was not one of the moms that was like reading all the books in advance. I was like, I'm just going to learn in the moment and kind of go with the flow and feel it out because I knew I was just not going to retain, honestly, any of that information. It was just going to give me anxiety.
Yeah.
So 4 month sleep regression, had never heard of that before. All of a sudden, he's not napping anywhere, not in the stroller, not in his crib, not on me sometimes, but like only if it was a very dark room. And I was just like, something's wrong here. So I happened to go to a friend's house who had a baby a few weeks before I did. She was probably one of my only friends who had a baby before me. And she put her daughter down awake and she went to sleep for a nap. And I was like, what is this magic? Because I just spent 30 minutes rocking my son in your dark bathroom. And she's like, oh, we sleep trained her. And there I was like, okay, I guess I have to reevaluate that this is maybe something I should do. So she sent me all the information that she had followed. I just got really invested in it. And I started the process. It was hard, of course, it's always hard. But I saw the success really quickly and was like, he's sleeping well. He's happier during the times he's awake. I feel less stressed. I don't go to bed every night being like so anxious. Like, what is tonight going to look like? And that for me was just such a relief because there's so much we can't control with our kids. And
Yeah.
like, and that was really hard for me. So to have that little bit of control in the areas that I could control was life changing to me. And I saw it, he was doing so much better too. So I was obsessed with it. And then my friends started having babies very quickly after I did. And they knew that I was so invested in sleep training and just like raved about it. My son was such a good sleeper. So they would ask me questions. And I just, kept like digesting information. So I was like really knowledgeable casually. I had my second child in spring of 2023, and then I was on maternity leave again, and honestly was bored and was going through the sleep training process again. And my family looked at me and they were like, "You're really good at this. Like, maybe this is a career. And I was like, oh, never thought about it. Started doing some research. I'm like, oh, people do this for real. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get certified. And then, came time for launching my business. And there was born my sleep friend, because that's what my friends would call me. Like, oh, you have a question? Let me ask my sleep friend. And
I
that's
love
me.
that.
And yeah, so that's how I've started the process, and how I've really tried to like go through like all areas of my business, is like being a friend to moms, because like just as we were talking before, like it can feel so lonely and isolating. And especially when you're exhausted and you feel like you're the only person that has this one problem, having someone who can be like your ally, who's seen this go like multiple times with multiple babies and multiple families, and to tell you that this is perfectly normal and that it's fixable, it's everything.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And, I didn't even think about sleep training either when I was pregnant. Like you said, I didn't think I would retain it. And you just like, you really don't know what you're going to get with your child.
Totally.
And so I think I was just going to ask the question like, do you think for like a new first time mom that it's even worth reading about sleep trainings? Or is it better to just wait until your child's here and then understand what's going on with that particular child and then start a process?
That's such a great question. No one's ever asked me that. I actually wouldn't have done it any differently if I think about it now, because I enjoyed the contact naps. Like if I had known that maybe I was getting myself into a situation that was going to be tough, then I wouldn't have gotten to experience that. And even the second time, a lot less contact naps when you have a toddler at home, but I didn't jump right into independent sleep or putting him down awake. Like, I wanted to snuggle with my baby. So
Hmm.
I I still, everyone's different, right? Some people like to be more prepared than others. That helps them. For me, I just knew that was not going to be best suited for my parenting. So I guess everyone, should do what's best for them. But if you feel like you want to enjoy those baby snuggles, like I am all for that. I love a contact nap.
Yeah, I know. I actually miss those because they're kind of fleeting.
They
Once they're gone,
are.
you realize how short that time is.
It's so true.
But yeah, I can see that being hard with having a toddler
Yes.
because they're noisy and yeah. So, okay, I have like so many questions. Where to begin? So, that's amazing how My Sleep Friend started. I love how the name came about. It feels like you like kind of naturally stepped into this role and just like found like a passion and a calling.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like that, and I feel very lucky that I found something that I genuinely love to do so much, because
Yeah,
it's always nice to do something that you feel like you're good at, but then you're actually really helping people, and it's just such a rewarding feeling at the end of my time working with my clients when they're like, "This was the best investment I ever made," or, "I can't believe that we didn't contact you sooner," or, like, "You changed our lives." Like, that's amazing.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like as much as I can say that my daughter slept, she was good about napping once I had her in her crib, or she slept 12 hours throughout the night at 4 months old. It was still a very particular way. Like she
Yes.
had to sleep in a dark room. We use a noise machine. And like I just
Mhm.
wonder, like, as you're talking, I'm like, is that all necessary? Or can you sleep train a baby to where like they can fall asleep just putting them down in a brighter room?
Yep.
Um, it just makes me wonder, like, is that
Yeah.
reversible?
That's a also really great question, and things I talk about with my clients a lot. I always will try and set them up for the best success possible. Like things like having a routine, white noise, blackout shades are really, really valuable, because if we I like to relate our babies back to us, right? Because I think a lot of the time we put expectations on our babies that are not the expectations we'd have for ourselves. So I try and tell my clients, would you rather fall asleep outside in a moving vehicle where it's loud? Or would you rather be in a bed where it's nice and cool and you have, either no noise or neutral noise? It's dark, it's cozy. Probably that. Our babies want the same. Would you rather be in a familiar environment or an unfamiliar environment? Probably the familiar environment. So, you know, To some extent, yes, it is possible for them to sleep in different environments, but will it be their best sleep? Probably not. And that doesn't go for all babies or children. There are some that are way more flexible than others, and you kind of never know what hand you're going to be dealt. Like you might
Yeah.
have a baby that just like thrives on that routine and that consistency, which a lot of babies do, but some are so dependent on it. Or you might have one that is like totally good to fall asleep on a lounge chair by the pool. And like, how great for you that you get that too.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by like, I feel like it's by child because,
Totally.
yeah, like I don't think you can really like, I can try to train my daughter as hard as possible to fall asleep outside when she was little. It would never happen.
Exactly.
So I'm like, that's just not how she is. But it's so funny
No.
that you mentioned that because I'm like, yeah, like when I'm in bed, I like to have the TV on,
Yep.
something light, something calming to fall asleep to. It's actually really hard for me to fall asleep in a completely quiet room. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Like
why would
that's
they want to
your
do that?
ritual. Right.
Yep.
And they want that too. And so if we've got them accustomed to this thing, they're going to rely on that. And so that's why I rely so much on positive sleep associations as opposed to negative sleep associations or sleep props like rocking to sleep or there's like sound machines that might turn off after 30 seconds and then they're waiting, they wake up and they're looking for that thing that they had when they fell asleep and it's not there. So things like white noise or blackout, that's consistent throughout the whole time of sleep. So it's
Yep.
okay. It's okay to have that.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to ask you what the negatives were. But rocking to sleep, yeah, because if you rock your baby to sleep, and like you said, enjoy that in the beginning, but
Totally.
you can make them used to that, to where that is going to
Yes.
be your routine. And I will say that when Sailor, my daughter, was like 6 months old, I started just putting her in her crib. I would snuggle her. I
Hmm.
would, you know, kind of just hug her and hold her for a little bit, like for a couple minutes, but then I put her right down. And my
Yeah.
mother-in-law, my mom, they'd be like, "You just put her down." I'm like, "Well, yeah, if I rock her, she's gonna want that." Like,
Yep.
and
Yep.
not that I don't want to do that. There's some nights where I do. And now, oh boy, now I mean she's 2.5 years old and it's book, mommy, this book,
Hmm.
mommy. I mean, now they mastered putting sleep off.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. They're master
so
negotiators.
Yep, they are master negotiators by that age. So, like, that's how quick
Yep.
it does go. Like, by 2.5, they are now controlling
Yeah.
you
Yep.
if you
Yep.
let them. Um, okay, so in the beginning, when we talk contact naps, um, what are your thoughts on co-sleeping? I know this is a very controversial topic. Obviously, some parents, I don't even think they mean to do it. I think
Yeah.
it's just like they're so exhausted and their baby's screaming that they just put them in the bed next to them and that's how it like
Totally.
begins. But like what are your thoughts on co-sleeping? And then when they are so little, I'm talking you first bring them home from the
Yep.
hospital.
Yep.
Do you normally work with clients where they're going in the crib right away or are you kind of saying bassinet type situation to
Mhm.
crib?
So, in terms of co-sleeping, I am pro room sharing. I am against bed sharing, and it's simply from a safety standard.
Yeah.
And, I support whatever parents wanna do in their parenting journey, like, sleep training is not for everyone, so I'm never gonna push that on someone, but I will always advocate for safety. And it is proven that bed sharing is not the safest with a young baby. So, that I never will work with a client that wants to do that just simply because I don't feel it's safe.
Yep.
However, room sharing is great. And, I had my babies in my room in the beginning. It can make sleep training a little bit more challenging because as they get older, they become more aware of their surroundings and they're like, "Oh, I think I smell mom in this room." And it just,
Mhm.
even if they can't see you or like navigate, turning their heads to look at you, they can sense you're there. But I have sleep trained babies that share rooms with their parents and their bassinets right next to the bed, and it works and we can do it. It might take a little bit longer, but it's totally possible. So, but also if parents want to move their baby into their own nursery from night one, that's also fine too. Again, like I am totally fine with what any parent wants and what feels good for them as long as it's safe.
Now, I totally get the co-sleeping because we didn't co-sleep, but a couple nights, like I would be breastfeeding and then I would honestly fall asleep and
Uh-huh.
she would be next to me and I would freak out. I mean, it was probably for like 10 minutes, but it felt like
Yeah.
hours. And
Yes.
I'm like, "Oh my God, where's the baby?" Um, and so like, suffocation, like I get how that can
Yeah.
happen. Oh my God, like
Yeah. I
even
know.
them just like being face down and you not even realizing.
It's
So I definitely understand
yeah.
the importance of it. It's just that I see so many, not so many, but you just hear people or see people sharing that they co-sleep. And I'm like, huh, I wonder how that journey started. Oh, is
I
that something they
know.
started when they were babies? And it's probably different for everyone. Some kids at toddler age might be like, Mommy, I want to sleep with you. And then it's like, okay, that's easier.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how it starts too. But the danger I definitely understand because, you know, I unintentionally a
Yeah.
couple times would fall asleep and it scared the daylights out of me.
Yeah. No, I remember I would wake up and panic being like, where is he? But like he never was sleeping in my bed. But I mean, anxiety when you're postpartum is also just like so crazy. So I
Oh
would
my
just
gosh,
like
I
wake
know.
myself up being like, is where's the baby? But I'm like, wait, he's never slept here before.
Yeah. We did bassinet. So when you do bassinet to crib, is it a similar process than when you're
Yeah.
doing just like crib from night one?
Yeah, I don't find the transition to be as challenging as I think we worry it might be. Of course, like any transition, there could be some bumps, but if you have an already solid sleeper, then they always have that foundation to go back to, which is what I always tell my clients, whether it's like a transition like that, or they're going from a transitional sleep sack to their arms fully out, but they're already sleep trained. They have all of these skills that they've already built. So yeah, sure, there's going to be bumps and they could be small. They could, take a couple nights to get through it, but they always have it to go back to. And that's what's so amazing about sleep training is that you have given them this gift of being able to fall asleep on their own. So when they have these interruptions, whether it be an illness or travel or daylight savings, which is coming up in a few days, they can go right back to what they were doing before. Just like us, right? We don't sleep perfectly all the time for different circumstances. And truly, sometimes nights it's just random that we don't sleep well. But the
Yeah,
next night, we have the ability to do what we were doing before and go back and sleep well again, hopefully. And
definitely.
babies are the same.
Yeah. With sleep training, when is the appropriate age that a baby, like newborn, let's just start with newborn, that
Mhm.
they really should be sleeping throughout the night? Or does this depend as well on the baby? Or is there like a master plan as to like,
Yeah,
okay, by this time we could get them sleeping throughout the night
that's
for their
such a great
development and
question.
everything? And like feeding, because obviously their bellies need to be full so they can
Yeah.
also remain sleeping.
For sure. So this question has so many layers to it. First, I always like to tell people that sleep training and night weaning are different. So I've worked with a lot of babies who are young and cannot sleep through the night without a feed. They can still be sleep trained because we always put them down in their cribs awake. So they're always putting themselves to sleep and they're not using that feeding as a prop to put themselves to sleep. So I have babies that are perfectly sleep trained, but they still require night feeding, whether it's for weight gain or maybe mom is exclusively breastfeeding and she doesn't want to pump. She'd rather just offer the feed or it's helping to maintain her supply. That's all perfectly fine. And in terms of timing, like every baby is so different. I've had babies that I start with at 10 weeks who are sleeping through the night, which is not the norm. Like if someone's listening to that right now and your baby's not sleeping through the night, don't worry. Like that is wonderful, but not often the case. And then I have babies who come to me at 6 months who are struggling with feeding. And so they might still require some calories during the night. And oftentimes during the process, when we are going through sleep training, we're looking at a lot of factors like how they're feeding during the day. Are they taking full feeds? Are they following like an eat, play, sleep schedule? So we know they're getting those full feeds. Are they on the right nipple size? So we know that they're taking efficient feeds. And of course, I'm not a feeding specialist, but I can look at all of those things holistically to see if everything's in place that can help us get to that full night of sleep without needing the feeding. And most of the time we can. And oftentimes the baby will do it themselves because it's like they were craving that little bit of space and us to have that confidence in them that they can do it. And they often do. And if they don't, then we can help them through a gradual process to night wean if they're ready for it. And sometimes they're not. And that's okay too, because listen, we're not waking up in the middle of the night feeding. Like eventually we all stop that. But
Yeah.
when mom or dad feel ready to go through the process of sleep training and ultimately night weaning, that's the best time to do it. I always tell people the best time to sleep train is when you feel ready as a parent. Because if your baby is of appropriate age, your pediatrician gives you the go ahead, they're doing great, hitting their milestones developmentally, all of that, then it comes back to you because you're the one that's putting the work in. So if you feel like you're ready, great. If you feel like you're not, also great.
Yeah, that's so true. I didn't even think of that. Like sleep training, some parents might mistake that their kid's not sleeping through the night, but it's night weaning that's the
Yes.
issue there, or not an issue
Yes.
at all. Their child's growing and needs more.
Exactly.
Um, so I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a very common misconception, but and often and honestly the other way too. A lot of people will come to me and be like, "My baby's sleep trained, they sleep through the night, but I rock them to sleep." And I'm like, "Well, that actually your baby isn't sleep trained. They do sleep through the night, which is amazing, but they're getting assistance to go to sleep, so they're not sleep trained."
yeah. Wow. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I breastfed, but I also pumped. So like at 3 a.m. I would sit in my bathroom and just pump,
Oh,
which I'm
I
like,
remember those days.
I'm reevaluating that for my second baby. Not that I don't, but I'm like, I have to have a different amount of energy now
Yeah,
um, for having a toddler. I don't just have this
totally.
baby that's laying around or doing tummy time. Like I'm not going to have a toddler running around.
Mhm.
And so you have to do, you have to make adjustments to kind of do what's going to fit your lifestyle of how your family is.
100%. The aspect of the second baby and having a toddler is so, so different. So
Yeah.
different. Yeah. I also say, like, and we talked about this before, like, every kid is so different. You might have had an amazing sleeper the first time, and then parents are shocked when they don't have a natural sleeper the second time. And they're like, "But we did all the same things. Why isn't this working?" It's like, well, no two people are the same. We can't expect that these two babies are going to be the same either. And yes, there are some very, very lucky families that have two unicorn babies and they're great sleepers and you don't have to do much sleep training and they just do it. But that's rarely the case. There's usually at least one that you're going to have to support in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me a little nervous, but
Sorry.
no, no, I had that expectation. I'm like, I always said to my husband, I'm like, I wonder if Taylor's a good sleeper or like maybe she's easy. I'm like, I feel like we won't
Yeah.
know till we have this next baby because, you know, she slept through the night. But like I said, there was challenges. Like my first year of life, I was like my mom, I would go to my parents' house. They live like 10 minutes away to have like coffee
Mhm.
in the afternoon with her. And my mom had a crib, like a little room set up. I'd put her in there, cry the whole time. Just
Yep.
would not sleep. Until this day, my mom's like, we can't get her to sleep there. My mom's like, okay, she's getting to an age where like maybe she'll fall asleep with Mimi and Papa in the bed.
Mhm.
But that was always such a challenge. So I would like put her in there, and my mom's like, how long are you going to leave her in there? I'm like, I don't know, 30 minutes just to see like, she wouldn't be screaming, she would like
Yeah.
cry. And then like I thought she would fall asleep and then she would cry again.
Yep.
But so that was super challenging for me. So I'm like, who knows? I don't know if she was an easy sleeper or not. I really don't know. And because I don't have a comparison.
But it's also the work that you put into it, right? Like you
Yeah.
set boundaries for yourself. You gave her that space to try. And that's like a credit to what you've done also.
Yeah. I guess that's one way of looking at it. Um, when it comes to naps,
Mhm.
like, okay, two things around the naps. How do you know when it's time to drop a nap? And I feel like a lot of parents, I see the same thing and it's funny because now I can compare because like when it went from, I feel like the two naps to one nap was like the
Mhm.
one that stands out in my head the most.
Mhm.
Um, and I honestly don't even remember when I did it. It's crazy that I can't remember. But I've seen so many moms be like, okay, I think my son or daughter's ready to drop a nap. How do you know? And
Yeah.
then they try and then they're like, okay, no, he's not or she's not ready. And I feel like there is this like, it's a process. It takes a few weeks to
For
really
sure.
feel it out or have them adjust to it.
Absolutely.
And so like what are the cues or like is there an age that is best when you're going to drop naps?
Yeah. So I usually say the biggest sign for dropping a nap is when they're fighting their last nap of the day. So if you're on 3 naps, they're usually fighting that third nap. If you're on 2 naps, they're usually fighting the second. That's the biggest sign. Like they're just taking a really long time to fall asleep or not at all. That's the biggest. Then it would be there's some new sleep disruption that wasn't present before. So, like new middle of the night wake ups, new early morning wake ups, crying, after 30 minutes, like of a short nap, just taking a really long time to fall asleep. So, bedtime's pushing super late. Anything like that that you're seeing as a pattern. We don't want to just like isolate it to one night because we all have bad nights of sleep. If we're
Yep.
seeing a pattern like 3+ consecutive days of the same thing happening, that's when I say, okay, look at your schedule and evaluate it. Do you think there's room for you to add wake time, to reduce day sleep? You could start with making a change there. Or if they're in a window where it's age appropriate to be dropping a nap, you're like, okay, this might be the time to go for it. So to give you some numbers, if that's helpful, usually the 2 to 1 transition happens usually sometime after 1. I find the most common is 14 to 15 months, but it can be anywhere between like 12 to 18 months. And that's a big window. But some
Mhm.
babies are more ready than others. And it is a tough transition because the wake windows go from like 3.5 hours to like 5.5, 6. And that's a long time for your baby to be awake. So, I always say like distract them as much as possible. If you thought that they were ready and you were experiencing some of those disruptions that I was explaining consistently, hold firm and don't go back because those problems are not going to disappear most likely. If they're at an age appropriate age to be making that nap transition and you're having those issues, just stick with it. Cause like you said, it takes some time to transition to get used to it.
Yep.
With any nap transition, there often is that little bit of overtiredness that we do experience, which is, of course, what we're always trying to combat with baby sleep is preventing overtired. But they're going from being awake from 3.5 hours at a time to 5.5 plus. That's a really long time. So naturally, there is going to be that bit of overtired. But once we get over the initial hump, and things smooth out, and you'll be back on track.
Yep. And that makes sense. Now, what about dropping naps completely? And like, I'm asking kind of because I'm at an age where like my daughter's turning 2.5. And I'm
Mhm.
like, when I say we're going to go for a nap, I know she's tired,
Yeah.
but she will sometimes fight it. And I keep her in there. I mean, I'll just
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, hey,
Great.
I'm like, if she's not crying the whole time, but I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, if you're not going to fall asleep, this is at least quiet time for you. And like, I
Yes.
literally like
Yes.
have like a teddy bear in there that like she'll turn the light on and it
Mhm.
like, sings Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And then eventually she does fall asleep. A couple times I'm like, okay, you're just not going to sleep for the day. Like, who knows? Maybe it's because you woke up early. Maybe it's because you went to bed too late. And then I'm like, we'll just readjust your schedule tomorrow. But
Yeah.
at what age do kids typically fully drop naps? Because I know it's important for development as well.
Yeah. So again, this is a really big range. I have seen children who are younger than 3 drop, but that is less common. I prefer it to be after 3, like maybe around 3.5. It feels like generally they're more ready for it. The dropping of the nap is always tough because you feel like you're losing that. If for parents, really, because you're losing that break in the day. But exactly what you've done is what I recommend. If they're not napping, they're having quiet time because sure, we need the break, but their bodies do too. They're
Yep.
still little and they need that time to reset. And ideally, it's not, including something like screen time. If that's what a parent chooses, that's what they choose. But I like it to be something that's just more like a quiet play where they can, we brand it as something really fun and special. You're big now. You don't take a nap anymore, but you get to have quiet time, which is time where you get to be on your own playing whatever you want. Let's curate a quiet time box together. Let's pick out toys that are dedicated to quiet time. We'll play your Tony box or Yoto play or whatever that may be, and you get to enjoy this time yourself. If you want to lay down during it, great. If you want to close your eyes and fall asleep, that's also fine. But like whatever you want to do during that time is for you. It gives you that break and it gives their bodies that break too. But in terms of what signs to drop that nap, it's similar, right? Like they're not really falling asleep for that nap, maybe, or bedtime is just getting ridiculously late and they don't seem tired and they're around that age, then it's time to go for it. When my older son dropped his nap, he was a great sleeper, of course, but then I think it was like the second night where he was protesting bedtime and he had never done it before. And I was like, this is it. This is our moment. We're dropping the nap. And he was like a little older, 3.5. He would still be napping today if I let him. Like I would like to take a nap every day too. But his body just couldn't handle it anymore. He needed that sleep pressure to be able to sleep 11 to 12 hours a night.
Yep. Yeah. Um, that makes sense. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm like, I know you're tired. She's just like how she extends or how I'm sure a lot of 2.5-year-olds protest bedtime or try to
Totally.
extend bedtime. She'll kick her wall. And I know it's like developmental things too. She's still in a crib. But she'll like be
Love
singing or
that.
clapping her hands, singing happy birthday. And my husband and I crack up. I'm like, okay, I feel like this is like developmental stuff because why is she singing happy birthday? It's
Right.
just because it's a song that she like
Yep.
recently has learned because we've had a lot of birthdays. And
Yep.
it's just so funny. So like a lot of times or she'll be doing downward dog in her crib.
Mhm.
So I'm like, this is all developmental. I feel that like, it's almost like
Yes.
her mind is going to where
Yes.
she can't settle. So it just takes her a longer time to settle.
Yeah, and it's so funny how that's, like, always their time where they practice new skills, like, they just take that alone time and they're like, "I'm gonna do all the new things that I learned," and, I mean, they're changing so much throughout these first few years of their life, like,
Ugh,
their brains and their bodies, like, they can't keep up, so, like,
yeah.
that's why when people talk about regressions and they happen so often, like, I mean, I you can't imagine, like, what their brains are going through, and, like, they're learning words constantly, and they're learning new developmental skills, and so sleep is often the first thing that gets disrupted, but it makes sense, right? Like, there's so much changing.
Yeah. And when they have that time, I feel like they're finally like, they're not seeing a TV on or seeing what other people are
Mhm.
doing or, there's not a lot of distraction. So I also feel like that's their time then when they're like,
Yes.
their minds then are like thinking. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's like,
so
I
funny
gotta
when,
perfect the birthday song.
oh my gosh, it's so funny to us. I remember when she was, I don't know what her age was. It's so sad. But she went through like the clapping hands phase where we'd put her in
Mhm.
her crib and she would just be clapping her hands and we would
So
just crack
cute.
up. It's
It's
so
so
cute.
cute. I love that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So you mentioned that you love that she's still in the crib.
Yes.
What is the theories around crib? Because my husband and I have been having this discussion
Mhm.
because we're having a second baby and we're gonna move her room because we're having another
Mhm.
girl. We're like, okay, we're gonna keep the nursery, like her room, the nursery. And I'm like, how long do I keep her in a crib for? Do I
Yeah.
transition her? She also wakes up in the morning. She's been doing better, but she had like a 5 month where she would wake up and she'd just be jumping up and down, being like, mommy, mommy, mommy. And you're just like, okay, if she was in a bed, she can get herself in a lot more trouble. But
Mhm.
would she just get out of her bed then and go read her books? Because a lot of times I'm like, does she just want something that's out of her crib?
Mhm.
But she's asking me because she knows I need to get her out of her crib. So I
Right?
like wonder, as a parent, then I start thinking, I'm like, okay, I've always heard keep them in their crib as long as possible. But I'm like, but being woken up at 7 or 6:30 with them
Mhm.
screaming and all they really want is to then play with their toys that are in their room.
Mhm.
What's what's your thoughts on that?
So I am definitely on the side of keep them in the crib as long as you can because especially when they're younger, the boundary setting is challenging. Like we have to put those in place, right? And the crib is a physical boundary that they
Mhm.
already respect. if they lose the respect for that boundary and they're climbing out of it,
Yeah.
that's a safety hazard. So that's when I'm like, okay, I've had kids that are not even two learn to climb out of their crib, and parents are like, I need to get the tent. I need to do like put the mattress on the floor. Those things aren't safe. We got to move them to a bed and then figure out how we're going to childproof the room, how we're going to maybe even secure the door so they can't wander around the house, because that's not safe either.
No.
But if they are staying in their crib, they're happy in there. Of course, it's normal that she's going to wake up and like she wants to start her day and have fun. That I get. But she's staying in there happily. I would leave her in, especially with a big transition, like having a sibling. Keeping something consistent in a place where she feels safe, I think, is really, really valuable. Of course, some parents don't have a choice and they're like, financially, it makes no sense to get a second crib. And that, like, of course, I respect that decision. But if you have the ability to get a second crib, I always opt for that, because it's the transition can be challenging, and we don't want to couple two tough transitions together of having a new sibling and having a new sleep space with less physical boundaries. It's just kind of a recipe for like more challenges for everyone.
So true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, we already mastered the door handle thing because we changed her door handles to these round ones
Uh,
and she can't open them versus like, like a regular
Perfect.
handle.
Yep.
But
Perfect.
that was a serious thing because we have stairs. And I'm like,
Right.
if she can get out that door, you
Yes.
just don't know what they can get into. And then you have to like baby proof their
Exactly.
room. But yeah, she hasn't tried climbing out, but I definitely have. I have some neighbors and they have twin boys. And they're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, like they climb on our windowsills.
Oh
Like
my
they climb on
gosh.
everything. They'll climb up the drapes. I'm like, what? As we were talking, boys are very different
Boys are
from
built
girls.
different. Yeah.
But yeah, that was my thought. I was like, we were gonna buy her like a, like a little kid's twin
Yeah.
bed, and then like have the room set up to where we start saying like, "Hey, this is your new room,"
Hmm.
because also like, I don't know how she's gonna do with like, wait, that's my room.
Right.
So we wanted to make her like excited about her new big girl
Hmm.
room, but I was like, I don't know that I'm ready to take her out of the crib yet. Like it sounds nice,
Yeah.
so she can just walk into our room, but I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of challenges that come with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you don't know, like, we don't know. Like, some kids can respond super well. Like, I didn't know how my son was going to do it with the first night and if he was going to stay in his bed. I don't think he actually fully has realized that he can totally get out of his bed. He's 4.5. He usually waits there till I come in, which is a blessing. But a lot of the times they see that freedom and they just go for it. And they learn to turn that door handle and they get out. And then you have to deal with keeping your child in your bed and having a newborn or being really pregnant and also having to re-sleep train your child to stay in their new bed.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. Not ideal.
Not at all. Um, when it comes to siblings. So, obviously working with different sleep schedules. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes I mean, there's so many different equations, right? You can have one and then have
Yes.
twins. You can have
Yep.
triplets and then have twins, singletons. How should parents handle multiple children's sleep schedules? Like, what's the best way?
Yeah. So I try and maximize each child's preferred sleep schedules as much as possible. If there's overlap, wonderful. That's great for parents. If there's not, that's temporary. So I try and just like, give everyone the perspective, right? Like, I'll talk about me and my situation. My kids were on opposite sleep schedules for a while. I had one that was on two naps and one that was on one nap. So it would be nap, then my older one would nap, and then he would nap. And so we were like either homebound or just basically like one was napping at all times. So one of us would be able to leave the house with the other one. We weren't able to do as many things. We certainly didn't have a break. That was hard. But I'm like, okay, this is temporary. It's not going to be forever. And also, how nice is it that they get to have that one on one time when that's really rare? Like, for us, because they're together all the time. And so it's the four of us a lot, which is lovely. But it's also nice to have the special, like, two parents, one child, especially for my younger, who didn't experience being an only child. He gets to have that one on one special time. And it only lasted for a few months. And now I still have one napping luckily, and the other one does quiet time on weekends when he's not in school, most of the time with some protest, but he still does it. Um, but it's just, we want our children to be sleeping the best possible. So if that means that we need to give up some of those breaks, I personally think it's worth it. And that's because of course I prioritize sleep. Not everyone does, and that's okay. If parents are prioritizing like on the weekends, like being out and about, and then they just put their kids earlier to bed at night and their kids are still thriving, great. But most weekends, I'm like, I want them to take that good nap so then we can we can enjoy the rest of our day. We can go out to dinner with them and put them to bed maybe even a little bit later because they had a solid nap during the day. So it's different. Of course, so dependent on, how those schedules align. But I think for like whatever choice parents make is okay as long as they feel good about it and their and kids and babies seem content when they're awake, you know?
Yeah.
I oftentimes will have conversations with my clients where they're like, well, he's only getting an hour nap instead of an hour and a half, or he's waking up at 6:30, but then he's laying content until 7. And my question is always like, well, how does he seem when he's awake? Does he seem miserable? Does he seem exhausted? And oftentimes they're like, no, he seems fine. I'm like, then cool. He's doing great.
Yeah.
No issues. If we wanted to nap for 90 minutes, that would be nice, but they napped an hour and they feel good about that. That's great.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, my daughter sometimes will get like 3 hours out of her. Sometimes it's two. And most of the time it's an hour and a half nap. But she sleeps 12 and a half hours a night. So
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
that's all she needs.
Yeah.
Um, but that makes sense. I feel like I'm definitely going to be the parent that you just go based on what your child needs for sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, just because I rather have a happy child and a content child than like overtired. Um,
Totally.
for parents who, I'm home, I'm not dealing with daycare, but there are a lot of parents that, you know, they're at work, how is it handling like childcare sleep, naps when a child is in daycare?
Yeah. So I work with a lot of families who are either both working, um, and they have a nanny at home who handles the daytime sleep, or their children are in full-time daycare. Um, Oftentimes, daycare is really, really willing to do what the parents ask. So they're open to their schedule requests. They're open to asking them to be put down awake without a pacifier, to be following certain schedules for feeding and sleep. Most of the times I do hear that. There are some times, and there's like certain states I've learned that have certain regulations where like you can't wake a child if they fall asleep. So I've had clients come to me and their child is 4 and they offer quiet time for them in pre-K, but their child falls asleep and then they won't go to bed until like 9:30, and the daycare can't do anything about it because they're legally not allowed.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's really crazy. So that was new information. And it goes back to what I say a lot of the time, where we can control what we can control. So when they're sleeping at home, we control that sleep environment, that schedule. When they're not, we do the best we can, and then we pivot when we're back in control accordingly. So if they're taking crappy naps at daycare, early bedtime at night. If they're sleeping during the day at daycare when you don't want them to, if they're older or in preschool and their bedtime's a little bit later, it's temporary. They're not going to be in that school for much longer. Eventually, they'll move on to kindergarten. That won't be an option. And it's just kind of a phase we have to get through. And then on weekends, you can have that opportunity to have the quiet time, not have the nap, and have a normal bedtime. So I think like I say it to my clients a lot, like really like try and understand like that we can't control everything. We can put all of these things in place to encourage our kids to sleep well and our babies to sleep well, and they have to do some of it too. Of course they're babies, but if we set up their wake windows perfectly and we give them the best sleep environment and they're fed well and they're still only taking 30-minute crappy naps, but they're content during the day, then it's a phase and they'll get over it, and we have to let go some of that control because we did everything we could.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um, for children who, let's say they're in that weird phase of like dropping a nap, how do you like adjust bedtimes? Because I feel like that's another thing is like
Yeah.
when your child's fighting naps, it's like I feel like parents don't know. Like, do you put them down later? Do you put
Yeah.
them down earlier?
Yep.
Like, what do you do?
I love an early bedtime. I mean, especially on weekends, like what parent does not love an early bedtime? When
Yes.
our kids are fighting those naps or they're taking crappier naps, even if they're not on, super sensitive wake window schedules anymore because they're older babies or they're older children, we still want to give them that extra opportunity to make up that lack of day sleep from during the day at night. So if their bedtime was 8 p.m. and they're on that one nap schedule, but we expect them to take a 90-minute nap, but they end up taking a 30-minute nap, then 7 o'clock bedtime that night, then they can make up that lost day sleep at night. And it rarely results in an earlier wake. If anything, it just, kind of resets them and then you go for it again tomorrow. But yeah, I'm all about an early bedtime.
Yeah, because I was always curious about that. And, this is just like stuff that I just see over social media, like
Mhm.
parents will like take to social media to ask, like,
Yep.
moms, what do you do? And then I'm like, I don't know. I would put them down earlier, but I'm like, is that
Yeah.
really the answer? I don't know. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, I have no clue if what I'm doing is accurate or like the correct
None of us
way.
do. None of us
No,
know.
I know. Someone once said, this was like before I was even a mom. They're like, parents are not given like a handbook. Like
Yeah.
give yourself grace, give parents grace. Children, as they get older, like give your parents grace.
Yeah.
Because, when kids get older, they're always like, oh, my parents didn't do this right. And it's like, they didn't know. But I
Totally. Like,
love that. I was
yeah,
like, you're so right. Like parents don't have handbooks.
it's so true. Like, I, for the most part, have sleep in a good place in my house, but other than that, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making it up and doing the best I can. And even with sleep sometimes, like, it's can be so nuanced and you're just making the best choices for yourself and your family. So, yeah, we have to be forgiving and kind to ourselves.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Um, for the moms that are questioning if they need help, because I feel like so many times, maybe it's like financially they aren't sure, like,
Yeah.
is it worth it? Do I have it to do it? But I'm exhausted and we're struggling. Like, so many times I feel like as moms or parents, we power through
Yeah.
the hard. At what point do you think, what advice would you give that parent? Like, that's like, do I do it? Do I not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know the financial component is so real, and I totally get, it's a can be a luxury service, and I totally respect that. Which is why I like try and be really active on my social accounts. Like if it's not in someone's budget to hire someone one-on-one, I try and give as much information as I can because the information it can be found anywhere, right? It's when you hire a sleep consultant, it's about the support of course, with the information as well, but it's really about the support level. And so when someone is hiring me, I want to be there as like part of their team, their parenting network during those 2 weeks that we're working together. So if you feel like you need someone to be on your team someone who like you can trust that's not just ChatGPT or Google to ask these questions to. You want a real person who has seen this and can make you feel more confident in the decisions you're making. Um, or you really need someone to hold you accountable because a lot of the times, especially when we're exhausted, it's so hard to follow through with what we know is the right thing to do. And so when you
Mm,
work with someone and you're investing your time and your money into that, you feel way more compelled to stick with it. So if you feel like you need that extra support, that's when I suggest looking for a sleep consultant. If you just feel like you want the information, there is so much out there and there's so many different methods that work really well and that are well suited to different parenting styles. So if it's not in the cards financially or just it's not you don't feel like you need to work with someone one on one, there's so much out there and just my best recommendation is to just stick with one thing that feels good to you in your terms of your parenting style. Stick with it because it will work. Some are quicker than others, but they all eventually do work. Just commit to it. Don't give up on one night, be like, oh my God, that was so hard or that was crazy. It's always hard no matter what method you choose. Just stick with it. It takes time and you will see the results 100%.
Yeah, and I feel like eventually you'll also laugh about it, because
Yes.
once they hit, like, age 5, they don't even really nap anymore. They start to put themselves to bed, fall
Yep.
asleep because 'cause they're tired.
Yep.
Not that I have a 5-year-old yet, but, like, all my friends or, like, my niece is gonna be 5, and I just see it with her.
Yeah.
So it's like, one day you will laugh, and it's not
It's
far away from when they're newborn to that age.
It's really not. I always say, and I'm sure so many parents say this, and it's so hard to like remind yourself in the moment, but everything is a phase. Everything is temporary. It all passes. The hard moments, the good moments too, we have to treasure those because those pass also. So those moments where you feel like you're the only parent that's awake and yours is the only baby that won't sleep, know that you are so far from alone and it will get better.
Yeah, it's so true, and my daughter went through a phase where she was waking up at, like, 10 PM, around 2 years old, and I would go in there, and I'm like my husband's like, "Why are you going in there?" I'm like, "Because I'm not she's never gonna want me like this eventually."
Right.
And so I'd
Yeah.
go in because 'cause she'd be standing there in her little sleep sack, like, "Mommy," and she would just fall asleep on me in her rocking chair. And then I
Sweet.
after like 15 minutes, I would just put her back and she was good. But it's almost like but then it did become a little routine, but I was like, "Okay, I'm okay with it." And
Mhm.
then after a week, I was like, "Okay, I gotta let her just go back to sleep on her own." But, like, I took that
Th
moment for myself because I'm like,
Yeah,
"She never cuddles me like this anymore."
I know,
Um,
how sweet.
it's
It
so sweet.
it's really true, like, it's if what you're doing is serving you, then do it, and if it's serving your
Mhm.
child, then do it. If it's then when it's not, then you make a change, but, like, that felt good for you and it felt good for her, and then
Yep,
you were still able to go back to what you wanted eventually,
yep.
but in the moment, that's what you both needed.
Yeah, I'm like, I have the energy. Like, she's my only little
Yeah.
one right now. And now it's like
Yeah.
even more different because I'm like, oh my gosh, she's not going to be the only one soon. So, yeah, like life transitions for us too. And then, like, we may have more energy to give or less energy to give.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to working with you directly, if someone were to reach out, what is kind of like, what can they expect when working with you?
Yeah, so my 2 most popular services are an Ask Me Anything call, so that's just a 30-minute phone call where we just chat about all things sleep, all things specific to their situation. So whether they're having struggles with a regression or a nap transition or, their child won't stay in their bed and they need some tools on how to navigate that, we just, talk through that for those 30 minutes. And it's just a really good opportunity for parents to kind of download a bunch of information. But that's more specific when there's something that they really want to talk about that like we can, you know, focus on for those 30 minutes. If someone feels like they need more ongoing support, then I offer a 2-week support package. So that is more in depth. That includes a sleep plan and then working together for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, we text throughout bedtime and, of course, during the day as well to navigate the process of sleep training, but also to be there as a support for my clients when they're going through the motions and emotions of sleep training because it is hard. And I always tell people if it were easy, I would not have this job.
Hmm.
It's hard for everyone. It's very, very challenging to hear your child or your baby cry. But a lot of the work that we do together is one, reassuring me reassuring my clients that everything that is happening is normal, the way they're responding is normal, but also to reframe how we see our babies crying and understanding it and knowing that it doesn't mean maybe the same things that we associate crying with, like, crying when you're sad or you're in pain. That's not why our babies are crying when they're trying to fall asleep. They just are protesting and it's their only form of communication. So, being able to be there for them to remind them of this and then ultimately see that success together and then, fix those things around those 2 weeks that we're working together, whether it's babies waking up earlier than we want or they're not taking long enough naps, just kind of fine tuning schedules together and, seeing the process through. So I love working with clients in that larger capacity because we really see so many things together while we're working together. And we also been through so much together that when we have our wrap up call at the end, we're all celebrating together, and it's
Yep.
such a nice feeling.
Yeah, and that's awesome because I feel like somebody can do a 30-minute call and then be like, "Okay, wait, maybe I do need to do the 2 weeks." Or
Yeah.
like, "Okay, maybe I'm good after this." But at least it was like confirmation. Cause yeah, I'm definitely not like a chat GPT girl. That's so
Mhm.
bad, but like I am not. I like to like actually talk to somebody. And like you said, there's so much information out there. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'd rather go to a subject matter expert of somebody who can break that down for me.
Yep.
Um, versus me like gathering from a ton of different areas.
Yeah. The human element of it when you're working with your baby and it's about your baby is it's so important.
It really is. Um, well, I really appreciate you coming on the Mom Mode podcast.
Thank you.
It's been very informative, very helpful. I feel like hopefully this will help so many moms who listen to this episode, even if it means they don't feel alone in their journey with sleep because it is challenging, but you will get past it.
100%. Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun chatting with you.
Yes, you as well.